Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So glad you're joining us for another session where we really get into the materials you've shared with us.
It's good to be here. And we definitely have quite a layered topic today, drawing from notes on one particular word, plus some linguistic background and study guides.
That's right. Today, we are focusing on a single Hebrew word, just one. But, as I think we'll see, it's incredibly rich, packed with meaning that really opens up, well, a whole way of thinking found in the Bible.
The word is Tzaddiq. That's spelled Sad Dale Yod Quof.
Pronounced Tzaddiq. And our goal, like always here on the Deep Dive, is to take the source materials you've given us and really unpack this word from all angles. We want you to see what it truly conveys in different places so you can get informed, quickly and thoroughly.
And this word Tzaddiq, it's not some obscure term hidden away. The notes point out it appears, well, very frequently in the Hebrew Bible. Depending on how you count, it's there 206 or maybe 205 times.
That many? Wow.
Yes. It's clearly a central term for understanding biblical ideas about what's right, what's just, and even how one stands before God. It's fundamental.
And the materials also mention the Septuagint, the early Greek translation.
Yeah.
How did they handle tsaddîq?
Overwhelmingly, they used one main Greek word, dikaios. The notes say this happens 189 times.
And dikaios means?
It means just or righteous. So, right from that very first major translation effort, you see this strong connection being made. The core idea was clearly understood as revolving around justice and righteousness.
Okay, that gives us a solid starting point. Let's dig into that core meaning then. What's the basic idea behind tsaddîq?
At its absolute heart, the word seems to be about alignment. It's about being just or righteous because you conform to a proper standard. Think of it like lining up correctly, measuring up to what's required or expected, being in the right.
Right. But the materials stress that it's not simple. It's not used in just one narrow way.
No, not at all. That's one of the really fascinating things the notes bring out. Its scope is surprisingly wide. It goes way beyond just, say, human morality, which might be our first thought.
And one of the most surprising applications, maybe, is that it can describe things, inanimate objects.
Yes, exactly. The first category the notes explore is its use for things, concepts, non-living entities. In this sense, tzaddiq means something has been examined and, well, found to be in order or simply correct.
So not moral, but accurate, fitting.
Precisely. It's about meeting a specific criterion or passing an evaluation. Think fitness for purpose or just being factually right.
Can you give us an example of that from the text? How does that look?
A really clear illustration the notes provide is from Isaiah 41:26. It uses the phrase "afonmar adik," which translates to that we may say, he is right, or maybe better here, it is correct.
Ah, okay.
Imagine someone presenting evidence or maybe a prophecy, and the judgment is, yes, that holds up. That is tzaddiq. It's an affirmation that it meets the standard, it's valid, it's all right. A basic declaration of correctness.
Almost like saying, check, or confirmed.
Yeah, something like that. It's a fundamental sense of rightness. Another example given is Deuteronomy 4.8. It talks about squati, bekim, adikim, righteous statutes, or just rules.
So rules themselves can be tsaddîq.
Yes, meaning they are beneficial, proper, right in their nature and effect. They conform to the standard of good law, good instruction.
Okay, so that's the baseline. Tzaddiq meaning correct, in order, applicable even to rules or statements. But obviously, the word gets most of its traction, you could say, when describing people.
Absolutely. That's where the meaning really expands and deepens. And the notes break this down into several contexts. The first major one for persons is the legal sphere, the juridical context.
Right, like in a court setting.
Exactly. Here, tzaddiq describes someone's standing when their conduct is evaluated legally.
And what does it mean to be tsaddîq in that legal sense? What does it tell you about the person?
It means being found irreproachable, innocent, or in the right. They have a just cause in a dispute, or they're found not guilty. They are, in a legal sense, cleared, vindicated.
The notes gave some specific examples here, didn't they?
Yes, several key ones. Exodus 23.7 uses it directly alongside innocent, takiwendik, the innocent and the righteous. The pairing really emphasizes the legal angle without fault, legally in the right.
Okay.
Then there's Deuteronomy 25.1. This describes a legal dispute where the judges are to declare one party, a tzaddiq, the righteous one, the one in the right, and condemn the other. The notes specifically point out the sharp contrast here, acquitting the tzaddiq versus condemning the wicked, the rasha.
Ah, yes, that contrast again. Tzaddiq versus rasha, the righteous versus the wicked. That seems absolutely central, especially here.
It's a bedrock contrast throughout the Hebrew Bible, and the legal setting throws it into sharp relief. The rasha is the guilty one, the one in the wrong, the condemned. The tsaddîq is the one cleared, vindicated, affirmed as being in the right according to the law or the case.
And sometimes it's almost like a formal verdict.
It seems so. The materials mention its formulaic use, like marking the end of a dispute. 1 Samuel 24.18 and Proverbs 24.24 are given as examples where someone is told directly, you are in the right. It's the declaration settling a matter legally.
So it covers being generally in the right in a case, or innocent of a specific charge.
Both. 2 Kings 10.9 is cited for being innocent of a specific offense. It means you're not legally liable, not under penalty for that particular thing. And, importantly, the notes add that the judges themselves, the ones administering this justice, are expected to be tzaddikim, righteous. Ezekiel 23.45 is referenced there. They must embody the standard they uphold.
Okay, that covers the legal ground pretty well. Being cleared, innocent, legally right. But we know the word goes much further than just the courtroom. It touches on a person's whole way of being, their character.
Exactly. That takes us into the moral and ethical context. This is where Tzaddiq describes not just legal status, but inner character and outward behavior.
And what does that look like, ethically? How is that person described?
The notes use terms like morally in the right, innocent, respectable, honest, virtuous. It's about their fundamental character alignment. This involves being just towards other men, so fair dealing with people and being obedient to the laws of God. It connects morality with divine command.
Living a life that measures up to God's moral standards, essentially.
That's the idea, and the material points to Proverbs for specific virtues associated with this ethical tzaddiq.
What kind of virtues?
Things like benignity, sort of kindness and goodwill, liberality, which is generosity, temperance and sobriety, showing self-control, particularly noted in eating and speaking, a love for truth, and wisdom.
Concrete qualities.
Yes, demonstrated qualities. Psalm 37.21 is mentioned to illustrate kindness and generosity. The righteous person deals kindly and gives. Proverbs 13.25 is cited for temperance in eating, suggesting a disciplined life, not given to excess. Its character expressed through concrete actions.
So it's not just a feeling of being good. It's tied to observable conduct that reflects that inner alignment with God's ways.
Very much so. And again, in this moral sphere, the contrast with the rasha, the wicked person, is constant. The wicked are those whose character and actions are fundamentally misaligned with these standards of justice, goodness, and obedience.
But there was that interesting qualifier, wasn't there? Something from Ecclesiastes that adds a layer of realism.
Yes. Ecclesiastes 7.20. The notes highlight this verse. Surely there is not a righteous man, tzaddiq, on earth who does good and never sins. This is a crucial piece of the picture.
What does it tell us?
It injects a dose of reality about human nature, especially within a reformed understanding of sin. While the tzaddiq represents the ideal, morally upright, obedient, this verse acknowledges that in our fallen world, perfect, unbroken righteousness isn't achievable by human effort alone. Everyone falls short.
So it's the standard, the goal. But human sin means we don't perfectly meet it.
That seems to be the point the notes draw out. There's a tension between the divine standard of tzaddiq and the reality of human sinfulness. It points towards the need for something beyond our own efforts.
That ethical dimension concerning how we treat others and obey God seems like it would naturally spill over into community life.
It does, directly. And that leads us to the next aspect highlighted in the materials, the social justice and community dimension of tzaddiq. Being righteous isn't just a private matter or purely individual. It has significant social implications.
How so? What does it mean to be tzaddiq in society?
The notes describe it as being true to the community. This involves actions that promote fairness, equity, justice, and the well-being of the community members, especially the vulnerable.
Is there a passage that really unpacks this?
Ezekiel 18, specifically verses 5 through 9, is presented as a key text. It lays out a list of actions characteristic of a tzaddiq person, and they are very much about social conduct. Things like not eating on the mountains, idolatry, not lifting eyes to idols, not defiling a neighbor's wife, not oppressing anyone, restoring a debtor's pledge, not robbing, giving bread to the hungry, covering the naked with a garment, not lending at interest or taking profit unjustly, withdrawing one's hand from injustice, executing true justice between people, walking in God's statutes, and keeping his rules faithfully.
Wow, that's a comprehensive list of social ethics.
It really is. And verse 9 concludes emphatically, the person who does these things is righteous. Tzaddiq. He shall surely live, declares the Lord God. Their righteousness is demonstrated, proven, through these just actions within the community.
So caring for the poor, fair business, avoiding exploitation, these are core components of being tzaddiq.
Absolutely integral, according to Ezekiel 18 as presented here. And the term also applies to leadership within the community. The notes reference 2 Samuel 23.3, talking about a ruler who governs the people justly, moshel adiki. A just ruler ensures fairness and protects the vulnerable within the society.
And then there's that very specific phrase the notes highlighted.
Yes, no tzaddiq. This phrase from Jeremiah 23.5 is quite significant. It translates literally as righteous branch or righteous shoot, but the notes explain it refers to a future king from David's line, a legitimate rightful scion.
Often seen as pointing to the Messiah.
Yes, that's a very common interpretation, especially within Christian tradition. It connects tzaddiq here not just with moral righteousness, but with legitimacy, rightfulness of rule, the divinely appointed heir.
And the parallel in Zechariah 9.9 adds another layer.
It does. Zechariah 9.9 describes the coming king as tzaddiq and also nosha, which means something like saved, victorious, or endowed with salvation. The note suggests this pairing implies his righteousness and victory are granted by God, stemming from God's own saving justice. It's not just that he is righteous, but he is divinely vindicated and made successful because of that righteousness.
Then the Phoenician connection.
Right. The notes mention parallel Phoenician uses of similar phrases involving righteous and branch or son, also relating to legitimacy of lineage or succession. This suggests the idea of tzaddiq carrying connotations of legitimacy wasn't exclusive to Hebrew, but part of a broader regional understanding, strengthening the interpretation of the Jeremiah passage.
Okay, so we've seen legal, moral, and social dimensions. This idea of legitimacy and divine grant, especially in Zechariah, seems to lead us towards the explicitly religious aspect, concerning one's relationship directly with God.
Exactly. That brings us to the fifth category for persons, the religious and devotional sense of tzaddiq. This focuses squarely on a person's standing and character before God.
How is this religious tzaddiq defined?
The notes describe this person as just, upright, devout, and pious. It moves beyond just outward actions or legal status to the inner posture of the heart towards God, lived out in conscious relationship with him according to his revealed will.
Who are the prime examples of this?
Noah is the classic example given. Genesis 6.9 calls him privek, Ishant Adik Tamim, a righteous, blameless man. And significantly, Genesis 7.1 adds the crucial qualifier. Noah was found righteous before me, lepene, meaning before Yahweh.
That phrase before me or before Yahweh is key then.
It absolutely is. It shifts the frame of reference from human courts or societal opinion to God's own judgment. Being tzaddiq here is about being right in God's eyes. The notes link this person to the community of Yahweh, indicating their righteousness is partly defined by their belonging to God's covenant people. They also find pleasure in the commandments, referencing Psalms like 1.56 and 112.46. Their devotion isn't grudging duty, but finds joy in God's law.
And this category also includes the idea of being regarded as just.
Yes, that nuance is mentioned. It can signify not just an inherent state, but also being accounted or declared righteous by God. And predictably, the contrast with the Rasha wicked remains stark in this religious context, too. Psalm 1.5 famously says the wicked will not stand in the judgment or in the congregation of the righteous.
Now, this is where the concept of being justified and vindicated by Yahweh comes in, which feels particularly significant from a theological perspective.
It's definitely a key theological point drawn from the sources. It highlights that righteousness before God isn't always, or perhaps even primarily, something achieved by human merit alone. It points to God's action on behalf of individuals or his people.
Which passages illustrate this?
Isaiah 53.11 is highlighted. It speaks of the suffering servant of Yahweh, saying that, by his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, Tzaddiq. This strongly suggests that the servant's work is instrumental in bringing about the righteousness of others before God. It points towards an imputed or declared righteousness.
So the servant makes others tzaddiq.
That's the implication drawn. Similarly, Isaiah 60.21 describes God's people, Israel, saying, your people shall all be righteous, by adikim, but the context attributes this state to God's work. They are the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I might be glorified. Their righteousness is presented as a result of God's saving and establishing action, not purely their own achievement.
This idea of righteousness being granted or established by God leads us inevitably to the ultimate source.
Indeed, it points directly to God himself, and that's the final and arguably most foundational category in the notes, describing God, Yahweh, as tsaddîq.
What's it mean for God to be tsaddîq? It feels almost foundational, but the sources break it down.
It means his very nature, his being, and all his actions perfectly conform to the ultimate standard of rightness and justice, which is essentially his own character. He is the standard. The notes detail several ways this is expressed. First, he is the just judge, shasek, Psalm 7.11, verse 12 in Hebrew, and 129.4 are referenced. Job 34.17 calls him the just holder of power. This covers his role in judging the world, evaluating actions, and administering consequences.
And even his punishments are just.
Yes, crucially, the notes emphasize that God is just even when he punishes sin. Passages like 2 Chronicles 12.6 and Ezra 9.15 show people acknowledging God's righteousness, tzaddiq, precisely in the context of judgment or calamity resulting from their sin. His judgment isn't capricious, it's a righteous response to unrighteousness.
So his justice is part of his inherent character.
Absolutely. He doesn't just act justly, he is just. Furthermore, he actively establishes justice. Zephaniah 3.5 says, he brings his justice to light every morning. Psalm 119.137 declares, righteous tsaddîyq are you, O Yahweh, and upright are your judgments. He sets the standard and upholds it.
How does his righteousness contrast with human sinfulness?
The materials stress this contrast. God is shamed to be upright or in the right, specifically when juxtaposed with human sin or failure. Exodus 9.27 is a powerful example. Pharaoh himself declares, Yahweh is the righteous one, tsaddîyq, and I and my people are the wicked ones. Lamentations 1.18 and Nehemiah 9.33 echo this. The people confess God's justice even as they suffer the consequences of their own injustice. His righteousness remains perfect and serves as the ultimate measure.
And there was another dimension too, his faithfulness.
Yes, that's another vital aspect highlighted. God being tsaddîyq also encompasses his loyalty, faithfulness, and even his helpfulness or graciousness. Deuteronomy 32.4 calls him a God of faithfulness, righteous, tsaddîyq, and upright is he. Psalms 116.5 and 145.1 says in link, Yahweh being tsaddîyq with him being gracious and merciful.
So it's not just about strict judgment.
No, it's broader.
Yeah.
Nehemiah 9.8 makes the connection explicit. Abraham was found faithful, God made a covenant, and you have kept your promise, for you are righteous. His faithfulness to his covenant promises flows directly from his righteous character. It includes his saving, faithful actions towards his people.
And sometimes he's just called the righteous one.
Yes, the notes mention that definite form, tsaddîyq, used for God in Isaiah 24.16. It sets him apart as the ultimate embodiment of righteousness.
Okay, that covers the noun adjective tzaddiq across its range things, people in various contexts, legal, moral, social, religious, and God himself. To really round out the picture for the materials, we should look at the verb form too.
Right. Understanding the verb root to helps us see the actions associated with this state of being tsaddîyq.
What's the basic action in the simple qual stem?
The call essentially means to be right, to be in the right, to be just. It describes the state itself. The notes cite Ezekiel 16.52 and Job 9.2 as examples. It's the verbal equivalent of the core adjective meaning.
Then you have the hyphal stem, which often indicates causing something or declaring something. How does that play out here?
The hyphal of pokia gets interesting. It often means causing or declaring rightness. It can mean to execute judgment, putting justice into practice, like in 2 Samuel 15.4. It also means to vindicate, to prove or declare someone to be in the right. Isaiah 50.8 and Psalm 82.3 are examples where God acts to vindicate.
And connecting back to the legal context.
Yes, a key hyphal meaning is to acquit, to declare someone not guilty in court. This shows up in Exodus 23.7 and Deuteronomy 25.1, directly contrasted with the verb for condemning the wicked. It's the performative legal act of declaring someone tsaddîyq.
The notes also mentioned leading others to righteousness using the hyphal.
Right. That's a fascinating use highlighted from Daniel 12.3. It uses the hyphal participle for those who turn many to righteousness or lead many to righteousness. So the root isn't just about a state or a declaration, but also about the active work of guiding others toward that state.
What about the other stems, like peel?
The peel often carries an intensive or declarative force. For anq, the notes suggest it can mean to make seem righteous, Ezekiel 16.51, perhaps implying a superficial or false justification. It can also mean to consider righteous or to justify in the sense of regarding someone as righteous, as in Job 32.2, where Elihu considers himself righteous.
And the nephil.
The nephil stem often has a passive or reflexive sense. In Daniel 8.14, it's used regarding the sanctuary. After being defiled, it will be restored to its rightful state or be cleansed or reconsecrated. The notes translate it as to be restored. It's about being put right, brought back into conformity with the proper standard after desecration.
So looking at the verb really confirms that tsaddîyq isn't static. It involves being right, declaring right, making right, vindicating, and even leading towards rightness.
Precisely. It's a dynamic concept involving states, actions, and declarations by both God and humans.
Now, the materials also give us a wider perspective by looking at related words in other ancient languages. How does that help?
Looking at cognates related words from the same root in nearby Semitic languages helps us see which parts of the meaning were common across the ancient Near East and which might have unique nuances in biblical Hebrew. It gives linguistic context.
What's the common ground? What do we see shared?
The core meaning seems widely shared. The notes list cognates in Samaritan, Mishnaic Hebrew, Jewish Aramaic, Canaanite like Phoenician, Syriac, Mandaic, Ethiopic, Old South Arabian, all sharing the basic sense of just, righteous, or upright. This aligns with the Hebrew tzaddiq and the Greek dikaios. So the fundamental concept of conforming to a standard of rightness was definitely prevalent.
But there were some interesting variations or specific developments mentioned too.
Yes, and these highlight how related words can specialize or shift. For instance, Egyptian Aramaic is noted as possibly emphasizing legal entitlement, legally entitled to, having the right to. A slightly narrower focus, perhaps. Syriac adds meanings like cheap and suitable alongside just. So it brings in economic fairness and general appropriateness, which aren't typical for Hebrew tzaddiq. Mandaic extends it to true, pure, perfect, broadening the scope beyond just moral legal rightness.
And the Arabic one was quite different.
Very different. Arabic adik means friend. It's a major semantic shift. While you could maybe trace a path through ideas like loyalty or faithfulness, which are aspects of God's righteousness in Hebrew, the primary meaning moved firmly into the realm of personal relationship. It shows words don't always stay semantically close, even if related.
What about Imperial Aramaic?
The notes list meanings like presence or straight on for Imperial Aramaic ZDQ. These seem quite distinct and might represent a different semantic path or even a coincidental similarity in letters.
And the Phoenician use we already touched on.
Yes, worth recalling. Phoenician phrases like ementq, legitimate shoot, parallel the Hebrew adik. This confirms that using the root umq to denote legitimacy of lineage or rightful succession was a shared Canaanite concept, reinforcing that reading in Jeremiah.
Beyond comparing languages, the sources also flagged a few spots within the Hebrew Bible where the use of tsaddîyq itself is maybe tricky or debated.
Right. One key example highlighted was Isaiah 49.24 with the phrase Shevi Adik. The notes call this controversial, signaling scholarly discussion.
What's the issue there?
The phrase literally seems to mean prey of the righteous or captives of the righteous. It sounds odd, doesn't it? Why would the righteous be taking prey or captives in this context, which is about liberation?
Yeah, that seems backwards.
Exactly. So interpretations vary. Some try to make sense of it as prey justly taken, or maybe the righteous refers to a powerful figure reclaiming what's theirs. But other scholars, as the notes indicate, wonder if there's a textual error.
You mean the original word might have been different?
That's the suggestion. Based on some ancient translations, like the Septuagint, Peshitta, Vulgate, and even some Hebrew manuscript evidence, it's proposed that the original word might have been kea, meaning tyrant or ruthless one. Prey of the tyrant makes immediate sense in a context of rescue.
Ah, okay, so it shows how textual criticism interacts with understanding the word.
Precisely. It demonstrates that even with a common word, we sometimes encounter complex textual questions that affect interpretation. The notes also briefly mention potential variant readings in Psalm 72.7 and 94.1 phi, possibly involving confusion between tsaddîyq, the adjective noun, and edik, the abstract noun righteousness. Small differences, but they can shift the nuance.
Right. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. We started with tsaddîyq, meaning correct for things, then explored its rich application to people legally innocent, morally upright, socially just, religiously devout, and ultimately saw it as defining God's own character. We looked at the verb forms and the wider linguistic context.
It really is a word that spans from the mundane sense of correct all the way up to the nature of God, all anchored in that idea of conforming to a standard, being in the right.
So let's synthesize this. Why does this deep dive into tzaddiq matter for you, the listener? What's the significance?
Well, understanding tzaddiq is fundamental because it's so central to the Bible's message. It touches everything.
Hmm.
Justice, morality, how we relate to God, who God is. Seeing the different facets helps you grasp the full biblical picture of righteousness. It's not just one narrow
It's
thing.
not just personal piety or just social action or just the legal status, is it?
No, it's integrated. It includes legal standing, moral character, social responsibility, sincere devotion, and ultimately being made right before God, often through his own action. Appreciating this complexity helps avoid reductionist views.
It also sets the standard, doesn't it? Reflecting God's own character.
Yes. It shows us the standard God upholds, which flows from his own perfect righteousness and faithfulness. And significantly, it points towards the hope found in the Messiah, the tzaddiq, the righteous branch, who embodies this legitimacy and righteousness, and through whom, as Isaiah 53 suggests, many are made righteous.
And knowing this helps us read the Bible better, seeing it in law, wisdom, prophets.
Definitely. Recognizing how tzaddiq functions in different genres, defining legal outcomes in Exodus, describing character in Proverbs, grounding prophetic hope in Jeremiah, expressing relationship in the Psalms, it provides a unifying thread and deepens your understanding across the canon.
It really comes across as a dynamic concept, something people strive for, something God is, and something God accomplishes for his people.
That captures it well. It's a rich, profound concept.
So, as we wrap up, here's a final thought for you to mull over, drawing from all this material. Given this incredibly broad and deep meaning of tzaddiq, covering legal rightness, moral integrity, social fairness, faithful devotion, and being accounted righteous by God himself, how might that shape your own understanding of what it means to live faithfully today? In a world where standards often seem relative or contested, what does it mean for us to seriously grapple with, understand, and perhaps even pursue the kind of comprehensive righteousness the Bible calls tzaddiq, especially knowing that the ultimate standard is the perfectly righteous character of God himself?